Welcome, guys, to our latest episode of PCCI. Today we have a special guest, Amir Naqvi, at the rate Karachi Khatmal. Before we start, how did you end up picking Karachi Khatmal as your Twitter name handle?
First of all, man, thanks a lot for having me, inviting me here. And I'm only saying this, I don't personally mind, but last time I did a podcast, people said I should point this out. So it's pronounced Ahmad, not Amir. So it's like
Hammer.
Ahmad, but like,
Okay,
yeah, Ahmad.
Amr, okay.
And Karachi Khatmal
because your
basically,
parents were cool.
my grandfather actually gave me this name, and I think it is cool. Like it means red in Arabic. So like I said, that's that I like the
आप
symbolism of that.
आप कहीं वो लाल वाले लोगों के साथ तो नहीं है सर?
Wait, right? Like I always used to think like my name means red, and I was left-handed. कि मतलब मैं naturally communist
To the left.
leftist type inclined. Uh, but
Hmm.
Karachi Khatmal basically Khatmal is a slur used for Shia
Bed
Muslims.
bugs.
Yeah,
Is
so it means
Oh,
bed bug
okay.
literally, मगर वो जो है
Hmm.
शिया के लिए एक गाली के तौर पे भी इस्तेमाल होता था. So, as growing up in South Asia, you're exposed to
uh,
casual bigotry from a very young age. And so I think at some point, when I was keeping my blog, the name of that, so I like the alliteration of it. And, I think especially when you get called out for your identity at a young age, you have a tendency to
own it.
sometimes own it more fiercely. Yeah, so I think कि उस लॉजिक ये थी इसके पीछे के ठीक है अगर खटमल कहना है तो कहो. Like, can I do Urdu and English both, or would you
Of
prefer
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
English?
we
yeah,
do. We
yeah.
do most. Our stuff is mostly bilingual
साउथ
in
में
that
नहीं
So,
सुन
sense.
रहे
Yeah.
इतने लोग फिर.
नहीं नहीं कोई नहीं सुनता.
ज-
अभी तक तो नहीं. अब
जब
तक तो कोई भी नहीं सुन रहा है.
नहीं
We have.
Apo- Apologies to all the listeners in the south of India if
uh,
we go to Hindi.
And if you want to force us to do an all English podcast, start listening first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's all
here's
it
the
is.
thing. We started as a political podcast, as our initial name goes, and the thing is कि हमारे जो मोदी जी हैं उनका कहना है कि सबको हिंदी आनी चाहिए across the board. So we
Right.
are the torch bearer of that. But just going back to your name, man, like it's like Khatmal being like bed bugs, and it's a very and we're not a political podcast, at least this one, but it's a very Nazi like like वो termites हैं वाला connotation, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Yeah, I mean, I remember once, like in the early days of Twitter, this senior journalist had like a pretty big फड्डा basically कि
mhm.
क्या कहते हैं कि आपको क्यों खटमल नहीं रखना चाहिए और ये तौहीन कर रहे हैं आप और people there are people being killed over this, etc., etc. And I of course I completely am sympathetic to that, and I'm very vocal about the violence against Shias in Pakistan, because obviously मेरी family मेरी community affect होती है उससे directly.
Mhm.
मगर मेरे ख्याल में और I think कि that's the other thing as well, is that when we talk about like Nazi Germany के लोग इसलिए मिसाल देते हैं because वो एक ऐसी society थी जहाँ पे for a unique set of time they were able to be pretty upfront about the bigotry being
Yeah,
enshrined in law. But उसी किस्म के एटीट्यूड्स आपको हर सोसाइटी में नजर आते हैं, एंड लाइक
अरे
दिस
सर हमारे
देयर इज,
तरफ
या
अभी
और आपको एक वो एनालॉग जो जहां तक मतलब जैसे कि जो कम्युनिटी है दैट इज परहैप्स द वन दैट्स मोर अर्बन or that's more involved in your finances, etc., they always attract these kinds of slurs in particular कि ये करते हैं, because मतलब a lot of that language also is अब पाकिस्तान में obviously क्योंकि ये इतनी नहीं है, but you can pick it up in pre-partition literature that if, for example, Hindu
कुछ
बनिया
हुआ
type भी जो एक stereotype वगैरह है, so there's like I think there is a similarity to that kind of मिडिल क्लासेस या जो कुछ भी जो एक माइनॉरिटी उस किस्म से देखी जाती है. And I think there's no coincidence that termites and bed bugs and that sort of terminology is being used. Um,
Which is
which
also something Amit uncle likes to use.
and by
exactly
Amit
right,
uncle,
like
yeah, yeah, he does this in all of his speeches basically.
yeah, and you see that kind of मतलब अक्सर वो कि उस किस्म की जो जबान के कुत्ता की तरह को चलना या इसकी तरह करना, like
Hmm.
there is that kind of
Hmm.
desire to describe them as pests, or like a parasite, or something that's undesirable in any society.
It's all about, again, I keep saying this. This is not political, but in the end, it's all about resources and people who think that they have the first right over resources, and they just cannot fathom that
Right,
there is a
right.
minority group that also has an equal right. I mean, हम इस पे एक पूरा एपिसोड कर सकते हैं. Maybe we should also have you on one of our political episodes and talk about
Yeah,
CA वाला
I'd
stuff.
love it. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But for so let's just start with a brief story of you. So basically, how you ended up being such an important voice in, especially for Pakistani cricket.
I mean, I think firstly, it's very flattering to be even called that, and secondly, I think there's a lot of luck involved. I think as you pick up experience in life, you realize that a lot of things in life are, you have to be prepared and you have to work hard or whatever. But a lot of it is the way luck breaks for you. So I think मेरे लिए मुझे जब मैं ग्रेजुएट हुआ था तो उस वक्त मेरे मास्टर्स नॉट मास्टर्स माय अंडर ग्रेजुएट थीसिस वाज लाइक दीज क्रिएटिव राइटिंग एंड स्टफ एंड
Mhm.
बट जो मेरे एडवाइजर थे वो आई डोंट नो क्विट or disappeared or something like right when I was supposed to submit it. And eventually, in order for me to graduate, I just told the dean that आप मुझे इसमें just give me a passing grade because no one's even looked at it, and I just want to be done with it. I want to graduate. And so initially, my writing dreams were kind of curtailed, and then I started working at a news channel. And Pakistan में उस वक्त नए नए news channels आए थे, and because today was the 27th of December when Benazir Bhutto was killed in
Yeah.
2007. And when she died, a few weeks later, I was in the newsroom, and there was like a lot of commotion. And basically, somebody had found this picture seconds before she was killed of this man wearing these sunglasses and pointing a gun and about to shoot it. And so that was one of the first clues that had emerged of the identity of her murderer, something which never had really properly got solved. But and that picture had come out of somewhere online. It had been posted on a blog. So this was, I think Twitter was around, but like really not a big deal, especially not in Pakistan. But it had been posted on a blog, and I became really intrigued that wow, there's this kind of medium that's even faster than television, because especially in Pakistan, TV news came a little later than it did in India, and so that was really the first few years where it had really come center stage. And for us, we were still excited by how immediate and fast TV media was. But the internet
But
was
was
like a
there
different beast altogether.
just to interject, like,
Sorry.
was there like a liberal space in the media back then, or how would you
It was a
classify
very
that?
interesting.
Like,
So, well, actually, in that specific moment, the supposedly liberal military dictator had enforced the emergency, and at that point, all the channels were off air in Pakistan. So we would come to work every day, and we would put something on the screens, and you could only see it if you were watching somewhere abroad or on, I
mhm.
think, something like that. So in that sense, the media had been basically the news media had a very feisty kind of atmosphere, and especially at that time, there was a lot of idealism and there was a lot of pushback against the military government. There's a lawyers movement happening and everything. In that specific moment, of course, that was when the military reacted, and the emergency was put on. So it wasn't a very liberal space, I would say, but at the same time, it was a bit of like a lot of norms had not been established as yet. So there were still certain things I guess you could get away with or whatever. But I think something like this, that particular little image was a very something that would have, which now we're used to things going viral online first and then the news media picking it up. I think that was still a time where that phenomena wasn't so common, and that made me interested in blogs. And like I started following some, I made one of my own. And the easiest thing for me to write on was cricket, because I've said this before as well. Like I suck at like I'm literally the worst player to ever have played cricket. Um, and when you're young, when you go
ना
out to
ना
play
ना
in the streets,
शार्दुल
it's
ठाकुर
just
खेल रहा
cricket.
है.
No, no, no. You literally, dude. You like. I think it's one of the examples I give is once we had this friend who had moved from America and later we became friends with, at that time come from America, and he had never really played cricket, and he hit me for two sixes like the first few balls he played. So matlab ke I was just uniquely terrible.
मतलब
Um,
गली क्रिकेट एक्सपीरियंस कैसा
गली
था?
क्रिकेट भी नहीं, लाइक गली क्रिकेट में भी
अच्छा.
मुझे बस थर्ड मैन पे खड़ा करते थे. लाइक आई थिंक द ओनली टाइम आई हैव बीन competitive was when I was teaching last year. I was teaching these like 13-year-old girls how to play cricket who'd never played cricket before. So that's when I had like a competitive game. And okay, very soon they were picking up the skills and they would have been better than me. But that's the thing, that if you want to be accepted and you want to be cool when you're younger, you need to have some kind of link to cricket, right? Like I always look at it as like part of my performance of masculinity, where you want to be like, I wasn't good at sports and I was a good student, which doesn't make you cool. And so the thing was, okay, I'd watch the matches and I'd, oh, did you watch this last night or did you see this match or whatever? And over time, like it become, I'd had obviously was very obsessed with cricket, etc. But I'd found that it was one of the easiest ways also to connect with people socially. So after my undergraduate, I was also very interested in popular culture as a means of as a means of political change, almost, I would say, or working towards political change through pop culture. Because you, in a country like Pakistan, for example, so it comes back to the whole being khatmal, right? Like that.
Mhm.
I was called out for being like, called out से मेरी मुराद की मतलब bullying की level पे कि क्लास 1 2 में के अरे तुम लोग शिया काफिर होते हैं या शिया के ये होता है या वो होता है. तो
Mhm.
उसी वक्त से मैंने सेक्युलर का लफ्ज सीखा था. मुझे बहुत मतलब आई थिंक 10 साल 11 साल का था मैं जब. और मेरा यही था कि अच्छा भाई, मगर अगर ये इस्लाम पे चलाएंगे तो फिर तो ये हमारा कहेंगे कि शिया मुसलमान नहीं है. मतलब दिस वाज समथिंग आई पिक्ड अप एट
Mhm.
दैट एज. एंड इट्स नॉट लाइक कि मैं बड़ा कोई सियाना बच्चा था. आई थिंक किड्स काइंड ऑफ maybe not be able to articulate it, but they definitely understand these things. Um, and so, and then Pakistan has had this problem where it's been, if you've read that book, Shame by Salman Rushdie, and he
Yeah.
talks about the paucity of imagination in imagining Pakistan. Because with India, what happens is as soon as you take the name India, you lay claim to all of South Asian heritage for the last 5,000 years or whatever, right? So like, you say Buddhism emerged in India or whatever, even though theoretically it emerges in modern. I don't know where Buddhism not it didn't emerge from there, but like schools of Buddhism,
Mhm.
etc., emerged from modern day Pakistan. But historically we
Yeah.
considered with India. So the Indian nation state has this connection to which countries like Egypt or
The
France or
Indus Valley
whatever.
civilization laying
Yeah,
Which
right.
is
claim
Like
to
they
that
can
in
lay
some
which is
sense.
claim.
again in Pakistan.
Which is again in
Technically.
Exactly.
Pakistan.
I mean, the beauty of it, the word India is from the word Indus, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Hind is so. Like, in fact, I remember I used to teach in a university once, and one day I was like, "Do you guys know what Hind means?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Well, it's the Arab word for the river Indus, and therefore a Hindu, in a most literal sense, means someone who lives near the Indus, which means we are all Hindus." And they were
मत
all like,
बोलो ऐसा भाई.
sir, कैसी बातें कर रहे हैं
ये यही
आप?"
यही हमारा मोहन मोहन भी बोल रहा है. You know who's Mohan? The
Yeah.
Right.
Mohan
Mohan
Bhagwat.
B.
Mohan Bhagwat. He's RSS's head.
Okay,
He
okay.
says the same exact things. But like,
But yeah, but there is also this attempt now to shift this Indus Valley civilization narrative to the Saraswati civilization
Yeah,
that,
narrative.
yeah,
that
yeah.
So
I actually came across it. I came across some fucking weirdo right wingers in India, and they've just been really heavily pushing that. And I was just like, man,
yeah.
South
So
Asia
there
so
is
is.
so messed up. But yeah, so
So
coming back to it, like,
mhm.
sorry. So I was basically what I was mentioning was that so India, as that nation state, has that advantage, and Pakistan has to kind of create that idea of like a theocratic state, except the guys who are running the theocracy are not clerics. They're not the ulema or whatever, right? So in Iran, for example, the Ayatollah runs it, but he's political, but he's also the clergy. But this is something weirder because the Muslim League is not, is like, rich elite secular guys, and then everyone who comes after that really uses Islam to keep the country together, because that means you avoid questions of linguistic diversity and ethnic diversity and giving everyone their rights, etc., etc. So in Pakistan, the concept of Pakistanism has been a very fraught one. And something that I picked up on was that cricket is one of those rare things that really cuts across that, right? So like a lot of people might have discontent about this country, but the cricket is something that is an idea of Pakistan that's less hostile and more emancipatory. And so that was something that I was always interested in cricket, especially after my undergraduate as well. And so when I start, so what I'm trying to bring together is that when I started writing, I was very lucky that there was something like blogging that existed, which meant you could publish yourself and not have to go through gatekeepers and build up a bit of an audience. I think secondly, we were extremely lucky, my generation of writers, is that in Pakistan's case, Usman Samiuddin, but generally also the emergence of Cricinfo's first generation of writers, Sidvi and Rahul Bhattacharya and those guys, they really changed the template of cricket writing. And they brought a lot more emotion into it, a lot more history and culture into it. And so they set this template as well. So all those things really came together, and the final like piece of luck, there was the one, my friend and mentor, the late Sabine Mahmood. She was an amazing person in Karachi, and her skill was really taking creatives and taking people with some kind of interest and putting them in places where they could flourish. And Sabine kind of just had read my blog or something, and she got me to moderate this talk between Usman and Saad Shafkat and a bunch of other people. And again, like that really helped both validate me and give me confidence, but also start helping with networks, etc. So I think, obviously, there was stuff that I was bringing it to myself, but I was also very lucky that, especially I feel the first era of blogging, that generation was extremely lucky, because all of us managed to build this audience and style and writing ability outside of mainstream media. And then after a while, mainstream media just co-opted it, so everybody got like jobs or columns or whatever in all these places as well. And I think like later era writers, when Twitter and Facebook became more ubiquitous, it became much harder. Uh, those of us who came in an era where blogging was still more relevant really got lucky with that.
Uh, to stretch that, and this is not a question per se, but this is more of I'd want a reflection from you. I've been reading you for years now, right? And I have read you on Cricinfo, and then I've read a few of the pieces that you did for Scroll as well. Um, and something that I keep noticing in the way you write is that you deal with um, identities and establishing identities a lot. Like दो pieces मुझे आपके जो काफी properly याद है. एक है you did a piece on Umar Akmal where you also wrote about Ahmad Shahzad, and then I guess before that you did a piece on Mohammad Asif, and both these articles were concerned about what could have been of these guys, the
Right.
potential what if. And then you did a piece on Scrolls which I had no idea about. I mean, this guy called Abid Brohi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, story and identity. Do you feel that by, and I guess this is a very broad question, but it is much about a reflection on your own identity, going back to Khatmal and all that, in what you write and what you want to talk to the world by your writing.
I think one of the, I think मेरे साथ बहुत रेयर हुआ है या शायद पहली दफा हुआ है कि when somebody kind of expresses uh, the ideas that you're trying to put through in your work. So I'm very glad that you picked up on that, because I think right from the start, like that was a very contentious thing for me, like the identity, um, and like I think personally as well, like I had this ईगो कहें आप या
Mhm.
डेफिनेटली ईगो और एक एम्बिशन और जो कुछ भी के एक दुनिया पे अपना एक निशान बनाना है, या जो जो एक sort of stupid सा आपका वो होता है. And then I got a chance after my O levels I got the scholarship to study at this thing called the United World Colleges.
Hmm.
The one I went to was in New Mexico. The India may be a Pune mein, and basically it's there. These you do the international baccalaureate for 2 years, but the main thing is it's kids from all over the world, and they promote world peace and harmony and that kind of stuff. And
Acha.
um, and I went it like my first year was basically September of my second year was when 9/11 happened. So, so I think that was a time where, matlab, just by the design of that institution, you really came to terms with your identity, and specifically 9/11. So, like it was
Hmm.
ideas of, it wasn't just who Ahmed is, but what it means to be a Karachiite, what it means to be a Pakistani, what it means to be Muslim, and all those questions were always very upfront in my mind. And like I think these kinds of situations made them even more contentious. And I think when I came around to writing, and especially the pieces जिनकी आप बात कर रहे हो, तो वहां तक मुझे
Hmm.
इस बात का भी एहसास होने लगा था कि देखो, जब मैं क्रिकेट के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ तो मैंने खेली नहीं है, ना ही मुझे खेलने आती है. तो मैं आपको नहीं बता सकता कि अगले की कवर ड्राइव में उसकी कोनी सीधी नहीं आ रही थी, या उसका बाजू ऐसे था, या फलाना ढिमकाना. Like that's not my forte, right? Um, and probably there's people who can do tactics much better than I. Not probably, definitely there are people who can do tactics much better than I can. But what I really was really excited about cricket, what I liked about cricket, and I noticed people relate to it as well, is कि क्योंकि खासतौर पे हमारी सोसाइटीज में क्रिकेट इतना परवेसिव है कि for men especially, cricket is how we learn to bond. Cricket is how we learn to love. Cricket is how we
Yeah.
learn to grieve. कि आपकी जो क्या कहते हैं, अ, खास तौर पे, मतलब 13-14 साल की उम्र पे जो हार्मोन्स फट रहे होते हैं, तो उस पे अगर आप, if you're masturbating, your family is going to be fucking scandalized, and if you're going to be like, looking at someone's tits or whatever, like, that's going to be a big issue. And I'm not condoning doing that either, but obviously you're just a fucking kid, right? You don't know, like
Exactly. Yeah.
you're assaulted by these hormones and trying to figure things out. You're confused. And but at the same time, you could also be, I don't know how old you guys are, but if you were my age, like you could be obsessed with Wasim Akram or Sachin, and in a
Yeah.
similarly, like, homoerotic kind of way. And that was more acceptable. Like I remember when Saeed Anwar hit 194. So when he crossed 189 and he broke Wave Richards' record, so I kissed him on the TV, on the TV screen, right? And I was 14 then, in fact, exactly. And then I remember like also getting really embarrassed, and then also, but like it was a romantic moment. Like it wasn't just about me being a cricket fan, but there was like I think a lot of different kinds of emotions that I kind of expressed in that moment, and then I was myself both embarrassed and kind of overwhelmed by what had overtaken me. So I think, एंड मतलब तो मैं लिखने की भी, मतलब जब मैंने शुरू किया तो एक आपको ये अंदाजा होता है कि आप सबसे अच्छा वही लिख सकते हैं जो आपका खुद पता है, राइट? Like
Hmm.
it is possible to obviously write from other people's perspectives. People do that in fiction all the time, but especially as a journalist, the kind of way you start thinking about things. I think, like, especially when I was writing at the beginning, like a lot of it was, up until then, my writing had been either academic writing at university or like writing for journalism in TV. And, you have to do references and sources and balance and all those things. And so blogging में कि आज़ादी भी थी कि यार बस अपने जज्बात के बारे में लिखना है मुझे, और क्रिकेट के बारे में जज्बात आपके सबसे आसानी से निकलते हैं. तो वहां से मतलब कि that was in a way, these were things that were most important to me. These were the things, identity, cricket as not just a sport, but like a feeling. All of those things were very like, became a big part of me. And when you talk about that Asif piece, for example,
Hmm.
so I do remember writing it very much, and I saw by that time I was very comfortable with this idea. Like I was dating someone who also had very interesting kind of, was really not into cricket, and so she would analyze how I would and other people would react to cricket in very interesting ways and very emotional kind of ways. And so by that time, when I wrote about Asif, I was very comfortable with the idea of talking about him as, that kind of lover that you knew is bad for you, that partner, that ex that you know is bad for you, but it was the greatest sex you ever had or something like that, right? Like it was that kind of toxic yet very addictive relationship that one had with Asif. And I think it was very easy for me to write it in those terms because um, that was exactly how I experienced it. And by that time, like I'd been writing for a while, it became very clear that that was how a lot of people experience cricket. And it's not, obviously cricket is not unique that way. हमारी society में क्योंकि cricket ज़्यादा मकबूल है तो इसलिए हम इसको इस तरीके से experience कर रहे हैं मगर मतलब बहुत सारी cultural चीजें इसी किस्म का impact होता है आपके ऊपर कि जो जिंदगी की जो मुसीबतें हैं जो confusions हैं the just the underlying kind of anxiety or discontent that life can provoke. These sorts of seemingly silly, ridiculous things like sports, give people a sense of structure, a sense of meaning, a sense of narrative, and those become extremely important, and it becomes very valuable to be able to talk about it.
So, coming back to your writing again, so over the years, like we have all evolved as fans too, right? So, we often speak, like the two of us, we have spoken about this last week, that we don't necessarily identify with the current Indian team as our own. So
Right.
we have grown up in the 90s, and for some reason defeats and victories both meant a lot more in the 90s and the early 2000s. So in some way we have grown to be less partisan. So how does that work for a writer per se? So does writing make the partisanship go away, or uh, does a partisan person not make for a good writer? Like how do you see this progressing as you grew up and like became a writer later on? So
I first have to say, like, these are really fantastic questions. And actually, it's very interesting because last week, the test match that was happening in Karachi, so it was a cricket for reunion basically because Andrew Fidel Fernando was in town, and
Uh-huh.
then Hassan Chima and Daniel Rasool had come down from Islamabad. I'm sorry, Lahore, and Usman Samuddin had flown out as well. So for like a few days, we'd all been hanging out together, and one of the conversations that we kept coming back to was how our relationship with cricket had changed as we became professional writers, and then in Hassan's case, manager as well. Um, and the main thing that we were all lamenting, and this is something like I have friends who work either with PSL teams or in the PCB, is that each one of us feels that we kind of crossed over, went into the backstage, and that really completely changes your relationship as a fan. So partisanship is a secondary thing, I guess, but like just as a fan, even it changes it. So I'll give you an example. If you're watching, I mean, right now, like as you say, maybe it's hard for you to take ownership of this team, but if you are watching whatever team that you care about, right? And I'll give you my example, basically that
Mhm.
I was working in the second PSL, and it was like 3, 4 in the morning. I went to buy some chocolates. Okay, it was like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. But like basically, Mohammed Hafiz is there with his family, and his kids are running around and everything, and he's just like a normal dad trying to control them. And I'm the checkout counter at the same time, and the cashier is like, "Oh, he paid for your chocolate." And I'm like, "Oh, that's very kind of you, thank you." And obviously, it's like a tiny thing, so it's not like he's trying to win me over or anything.
mhm.
And at that point, I wasn't working as a journalist either, so it seemed to be a pretty benign gesture, and I was like, "Thank you very much." And I go and I'm like, that's a nice thing to do. The problem was that I think like a few months later, Pakistan is playing India in the Champions Trophy, I think, or something of that nature was happening. And Hafiz, in an important fucking moment, holds out to mid wicket. And all my life in that moment, I just be like, Bhancho, Dalla, Kutta, Gandu, whatever. Right? But like now I've seen Hafiz as a human being. I know his, like I've seen his kids. I've like I've seen that kind of normalcy to him, and all of a sudden I'm just like, oh shit, like I can't immediately do that. Or for example, there's this another player who, like, he just really bats really ugly, and is not a great player. There's on the just on the fringes of the national team, but he's somebody who who's, I think his dad died when he was young, and he really like got his family through really tough times while playing cricket, etc. Now again, like normally, when you have no connection to that level, you watch something and you're just like, if he gets out, you can just be like, fuck this guy and I hate this team or whatever. And that helps you vent and that helps you kind of move on in life, right? Like most of this, most people who are watching a team are watching over a season that team lose because there's only one team that's going to win. So everyone else is supporting a loser, right? And so we as fans, we're far more used to the concept of losing, and we need it to kind of just vent or whatever relate or जो कुछ भी मगर एक दफा जब आपके साथ एक इनके एक मुख्तलिफ किस्म का रिश्ता हो जाता है where they're no longer two dimensional जहाँ आप इनको एक इंसान की तरह देख रहे हैं तो फिर बहुत ही ज्यादा मुश्किल होता है कि यार मैं I can't hate them or love them the same way. That being said, I think when I look around the press box, there's a lot of partisanship from every country. And I think वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा ये भी हो जाता है कि you start becoming so, especially when you're doing this as a beat, sometimes you start becoming really close to the players, and then you kind of get you get develop your own biases, and you feel betrayed, or you feel angry, like you kind of uh, मतलब आप रोहित की साइड पे जा रहे हैं और कोहली के खिलाफ हैं, whatever, that that kind of, you fall into those traps, and because at the end of the day it's also a job, and so you're also looking at your opportunities, etc. So I think what it really does is that it completely pollutes your relationship as a fan, and I guess like the partisan angle to it can still remain. Like I think partisanship is sometimes, I feel, it's a different need than fandom, because I think a fan can be super passionate, but a partisan person is really, I don't think, comes there for the fandom as much as they come for the tribal identity. So I think that might be a different, like I guess I'm very partisan in a lot of ways. Like I do care a lot about what Pakistan's results are, but like I don't hate the other side, and like I'm not wishing that kind of evil shit on them. So I think maybe I can't speak as well on partisanship, but I think it definitely, like writing and talking about it, changes relationship. Andrew was also talking about, so at his level, and Usman, both of them have talked about, that it also really becomes difficult where you have to keep your distance from those guys, because some of them you do get along with, but then if you criticize them, they get hurt, and they feel that you should be their friend when you're trying to do your job. So again, like those balances are also really difficult to keep, and once you're keeping those balances, then it becomes hard. Like again, like with Kohli, if you're a fan and Kohli hits a six and like fucking takes India to win, you can just enjoy that unadulterated, right? मगर आपने अगर क्या कहते हैं वो कोहली के साथ आप वो इंटरव्यू कर रहे थे और उसने बदतमीजी की थी, या he was kind of avoiding something, या वो, so like that has nothing to do with Kohli, like the man on the pitch, but your relationship with it is different, and that's a kind of that's a kind of interaction a fan won't. Well, fan interactions are at max one off or whatever, right? But like as a reporter or writer, you'll have them more frequently, and I think the closer you get to it, it really starts warping your relationship. So in certain ways, it's kind of cool that, like, I'll give you another example of it. That when it becomes a job, right? Like I was working the same PSL 2. I was working for Islamabad United, and so breakfast, man, everybody stayed at the Conrad Hotel, and so all the teams would be having breakfast. So it's kind of a surreal thing, which again, as a fan, you'd be like, oh my god, I would love to be in this moment. Which is that you just woken up and like, literally at every table there's like famous cricketers and their families, and different people hanging out or whatever. And so Rehan was with me. He's was a manager of Islamabad United, and
Mhm.
Rehan and I were having breakfast, and Misbah was on that table, and what happened was we had to get to the ground, or we had to get some work done, and like there was a lot of shit to get done. And there was a fourth person who I forget who, and they were just talking about the Pakistan team had just been to Australia, and like we're talking about this, that, and the other. And Misbah is like again the ultimate cricket nerd, and at some point, like we knew that we had like 5 minutes, we had to get the fuck out of there. तो आप जब होता है ना कि मतलब कि बात आप लपेटना चाह रहे हैं तो आप कोई एक बहुत ऑब्वियस बात करते हैं जिसपे सब हाँ हाँ करेंगे एंड देन चलो भाई अच्छा ओके it's like you when you're wrapping up that conversation और तो the I think I said कि स्टीव स्मिथ को आउट करना बड़ा मुश्किल है which is I think the least controversial opinion in world cricket, right? Like I think no one has a problem with that fact, right? Except, of course, Miss Haq, who's like, क्या मतलब उसे आउट करना मुश्किल है बड़ा आसान है. And now in the fucking crowded restaurant, Misbah stands up and he spends the next 20 minutes like literally like walking across and देखो उसकी ये वाली टांग यहाँ जाती है तो पहले आपने उसका सिली पे बंदा रखना है उसे यहाँ शॉर्ट करानी है बाजू में and like whenever I tell people this story and fans are just like oh my god you heard Misbah dissect Steve Smith, what did he say? And I don't remember shit because me and Rehan were just like oh man he's not going to stop and we were getting late and we have to do this we have to do that. And when we finally ran out of there, we were like, man, it's so weird that Pakistan's most successful ever test captain is talking cricket and both of us want to get the fuck out of there. Like, like what have we become? So I think that's also another weird situation as a fan, as somebody when you're working because you're getting these amazing experiences you want as a fan, but the nature of your job dictates that you get your work done instead of indulging that kind of shit. So it becomes a very I think a lot of us miss the innocence of fandom to answer your question.
Mhm.
Welcome back, guys. So, keeping on your writing, I just wanted to talk quickly about your recent piece that you did for Dawn, where you basically compared love for Pakistani cricket and to Pakistan itself, and also how Pakistani cricket and its performances and failings and everything reflects Pakistan too. As an Indian, reading that piece, it's basically I could copy paste almost 90% of it and just replace Pakistan with India, and it will be accurate for India as well. Barring one thing, which is mildly political, I guess, but still, which is that for the last decade or so, India has been a, a better team than it has been ever been before. However, as a society, I feel that we are,
Have never been worse.
yeah, and just as an outsider, and more importantly, as a Pakistani, how do you see this dichotomy, and how do you, in general, also see Indian cricket in the last 10, 15 years as a Pakistani fan who, growing up, has always felt that they had an upper hand whenever these contests were happening? Also, a brief comment on the way you see Indian society and be as honest as you can.
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this on a bunch of especially Indian podcasts. Okay, and like I always warn Indian fans, okay, there was a time in the 90s, and I remember sometime I can't remember the exact match, or sometime 99 I think, and we just like fuck just मतलब इंडिया को थप्पड़ मार के हरा दिया था ना कि वो मतलब हाँ चलो निकलो सारा मैच like उसके सर से यार और उस वक्त मैंने सोचा कि यार मुझे मजा नहीं आता है अब जब इंडिया को हराते हैं like I hope इंडिया भी जीतना शुरू करे. And like 20 years later I regret that sentiment so much. So very much. But I think so in that sense obviously it was a very weird journey where at first there was a lot of envy and there was weirdness because I think Dhoni was the first time that I actually enjoyed an Indian cricketer in so I was a big Dravid fan, but I think that Dravid was still within the mold of what I expected from Indian cricket.
Yeah.
Dhoni kind of broke that mold, and then Yuvraj. was another one, like especially that Yuvraj and Kef partnership at Lords. You really felt that okay, there's something different happening. And then when cricket kind of when the terrorist attacks happened in Pakistan and everything, I think उसके बाद से तो बिल्कुल एक मुख्तलिफ stratosphere में फिर गुफ्तगू चली जाती है because the IPL basically Pakistan not having any premier T20 competition, but especially not having access to the IPL was a huge blow just in terms of cricket development, but also in terms of the board's finances and all those other things. And वहाँ पे obviously that you could, there's again like just someone, there's more and more Indian players that you were admiring, the attitude, this, that, and the other. I think the real issue that where the kind of where you first started, like obviously मतलब एक level पे आपके as a fan तो I always like to think कि as someone with progressive politics or whatever, like cricket is the only arena जहाँ आप आराम से India bashing कर सकते हैं without
Nationalist हो
feeling
सकते
like,
हो.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly, like that's a kind of safe space almost. um, तो तो उस सेंस में भी मतलब जो एक एक बदमज़गी जहाँ से होना शुरू होती है, it starts with the Srini era and the kind of like first like kind of Lodhra Commission fixing stuff, and then चलो तब भी फिक्सिंग में आई थिंक विद पाकिस्तानी there's this feeling के और लोगों का पकड़ा नहीं जाता, हमारा पकड़ा
Mhm.
जाता है whatever, तो आई कैन डिसमिस दैट एज हमारी अपनी इनसिक्योरिटी वगैरह, मगर जब ये खास तौर पे बिग थ्री वाले मूव्स आना शुरू हुए हैं, and then the way basically just the bullying of the Indian board, I think that started becoming that indication. I think that happened even before the kind of coming apart of Indian society became obvious, right? So like I think at 2014 for me, um, yeah, Modi 2014, yeah, that was the
Yeah,
first election, right?
yeah.
And I remember like it was crazy on the timeline to kind of see a lot of people that you'd followed for a long time, and like कि जब पाकिस्तान में क्योंकि मतलब एक चीज है कि काफी इन सारी जो दुनिया भर में अभी फैशिज्म और ये सब वो सब हो रहा है, Pakistan is like the hipster of fascism, right? Like we were doing it before it was cool. Like you guys are catching up to this shit now. Like we've done it. Like we've gone through this a long time ago,
करके
right?
छोड़
So
दिया है, अब
हाँ
तो सुधर रहे
मतलब कि
हैं.
अब हाँ कि मतलब वो एक जो बड़ी मायूसी की बात जो ये थी कि आप सोचते थे कि अच्छा ठीक है यार, पाकिस्तान को देखो हमें डेमोक्रेसी लानी है और इंस्टीट्यूशंस खड़े करने हैं ताकि हम इंडिया की तरह हो, इसकी तरह हो, उसकी तरह हो। मगर अब लगता है बाकी दुनिया ने कहा नहीं भाई, हमें पाकिस्तान की तरह होते हैं, लाते आते हैं। And so in that sense, in Pakistan at least, like those kinds of battle lines were a lot more obvious, right? You knew who was on which side, and that was a crazy thing in India where all of a sudden all these like people who ostensibly were supposed to be liberal or whatever were
Latent
expressing these
bigots.
really, yeah, right, like that really was, I think, the first time it was kind of shocking, and especially the victory brought out like a lot of ugliness. And I would say that the Indian board had already brought out that ugliness before it even showed up in the electoral politics of India. And yeah, sure, the right wing had been really noisy and ugly prior to that as well. But maybe for not living in that society, like it really was first felt in the cricket world. And something like the big three kind of move was also, I think, especially for people like us who grew up in that era where the Asian kind of bloc really wrested power away from the Anglo-centric world in cricket. There was a sense of, I guess, whatever misplaced camaraderie or solidarity or jo kuch bhi, jo ab it was kind of shocking to see. And then the other thing is that as good as this Indian team is, it doesn't seem to win anything. Like like it and I say this in the most flippant sense because obviously it's got a brilliant track record, but like it doesn't have the big tournament wins that you would expect it to rack up.
In
Um,
fact, West Indies and Pakistan have won ICC events since 2013, and India has won none. So,
there you go, right? And like, and in each one of those, India was heavy favorites, but also that India benefited from every possible, the games were scheduled according to their thing. They play a home game in every ICC tournament. Up, because the ICC tournaments only happen in England, Australia, and India, and the Indian population is big enough to make it a home game wherever they play. And so in that sense, it's been also a bit confusing almost. I think, like, even if you take all the jingoism out of it, that there's dominance. Like if you think about, like, Australia has always been dominant, so I guess like they go out of it. But England has benefited from it, and England hosting this tournament at home, so, that you could see a lot of kind of breaks going their way, and they were finally won a trophy that they hadn't won in forever. But so I think that it's been it's almost, but you go to some of these kinds of biblical allegories of, like, के जो या गुरूर का सर नीचा type, कि मतलब हाँ उनके पास सारी, that whole मेरे पास बंगला है, गाड़ी है, whatever है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है, Champions Trophy है, like that sort of, um, it's become like that, where India has
I
become the
completely
big
agree.
bad guy.
I completely agree. In fact, so to your point, this overt jingoism that is pervasive in Indian society is uh, clearly very pervasive in Indian cricket, especially in the way the Indian cricket is being covered in Indian media.
I also have
Uh,
something to add here once you're done. Yeah,
uh,
suggest.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
so it's I mean, for a fan like me who grew up in the 90s and who really badly wanted India to do well, it's not really as sweet as I thought it would have been because of all of this pointless jingoism around it. But I just wanted to laud you quickly because obviously for this episode I did my research, but you wrote a piece after the India Australia game, to the World Cup game, and you compared. अभी तो आप biblical बातें करो, उस वक्त you compared the teams to Mean Girls, and uh, basically the hope was that although like they are doing well now and India beat Australia in that game, eventually there will be someone else who will beat both of them and show them show the bullies their place. And you were right, because it happened. And to be honest, it did not feel like 96 में जब श्रीलंका वाला सेमीफाइनल हुआ था, I literally cried on in front of the TV. Like you kissed Saeed Anwar, I cried in front of the TV. And this time I was like, meh. I mean, but this jingoism, and this whole discussion around it will take us into our next segment. Before I go
just
into
just
the
to
next
add
segment,
to
yeah.
just to add to that, so I just wanted to ask, so we were so day before yesterday there was this video about a new stadium that is being built at Ahmedabad now, something which is supposed to have like more than 100,000 people sitting in
Right.
it, and that is the venue which is supposed to host the Asia versus World 11 thing sometime in March, right? So when we looked at the video, the whole thing is about that being an ode to Modi and how it was his vision and so on. So something which struck me then is that how long before cricket, something which we all of us considered was at least naively as being immune to jingoism and just the romance of the sport and things like that, when that gets taken over by the jingoistic crowd, how is your defense? So for someone who has seen this through Pakistani society and that being relatively more nascent in Indian society, how do you as a follower of the sport deal with it in the first place? And does it really affect your equation when it comes to your relationship with the sport in some sense? Like, I can no longer be unabashedly an Indian cricket team supporter because when it came to the World Cup, as Raj said just now, the moment I saw India take on England in those saffron colors or whatever
Oh
it
yeah,
was,
even before
so
Pulwama ke baad, when India Australia,
Australia, when we wore that cap and
Yeah.
stuff like that, so it just turned me off somewhat, and I genuinely stopped carrying the same way again. So how did you deal with it in Pakistan, like as a liberal?
So I think this is another एक बड़ी interesting बात ये है कि इंडिया में जो क्रिकेट का नैरेटिव राइट ने एम्ब्रेस किया है वो पाकिस्तान में एक तरीके से नॉट इट्स नॉट एनालॉगस बट एक तरीके से we've had it for longer and so it's a different thing. Basically, India only tours Pakistan when there's a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's the only time where the establishment thinks it's okay for India to come over there. And the reason they do that is because it's a great populist move. And so there's actually all these great tours that have happened during the Ziaul Haq regime or the Musharraf regime. They come with this guilt that they were used by dictatorships to, distract the masses and kind of bolster their own position in society, etc. So I think there's definitely that, but I think that is the beauty of it, is that it goes both ways, right? So what happens is that abhi to, yeah, like right now, there's one phase of it, but there'll come a time, for example, जब कोई आपका जो मुसलमान खिलाड़ी winning runs मारेगा इंडिया के लिए, and like because if a game is so much part of the society, then it'll show the contradictions of that society as well, right? And that is a narrative that's harder and harder for politics to, for PR or for narrative uh, spin doctors or whatever to control. And again, I think it's interesting when we talk about it that in fact Indian cricket once again presaged the behavior of media as well. So it was the BCCI which basically started this draconian fascist way of dealing with media, and fucking Dhoni and Amitabh Bachchan piling on Harsha
Harsha
Bhogle.
Bhogle, yeah.
And gagging
Um,
him almost, yeah.
yeah, and it was insane. Like, I mean, Harsha Bhogle ने lit मतलब अगेन आप लोग जैसे कि जो सुनने वाले हैं तो उनको मैं बताता चलूं कि जब ये रिकॉर्डिंग पे नहीं था तो इन दोनों ने दिखाया था कि their knowledge of obscure shitty Pakistani YouTube content is insanely good.
We'll talk
And,
about it.
and
We'll talk about it now.
या
But yeah,
एंड
go
तो
on.
वहां पे आप देखेंगे पाकिस्तान में तो मतलब वो कुत्ता बिल्ली कर रहे होते हैं, मतलब जो है वो एंड इंडिया में भी एक जमाने में ये बड़ी एक नेक्स्ट लेवल पे वो मैच मुजरिम और वो सब चलता था, मगर
हाँ.
कि उसके बाद से फिर जो वो बदलाव आया है तो वहाँ क्रिकेट में पहले आया और फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आपकी मीडिया में आना शुरू हुआ है हुकूमत के साथ और जो आपकी बीजेपी वगैरह के साथ, तो in a lot of ways, it's interesting that Indian cricket kind of has that, it's kind of been the staging ground almost for things that you later see in the government. But I think that having been on the flip side of that, maybe a little bit earlier, whatever, is that you do get you do get opportunities, and I don't want to say that those opportunities that show something different or beautiful or alternative makes it okay or makes it right for fascist shit to happen. And it's very unfortunate when like something you love is overtaken by this narrative you can't control. But yeah, like I think कि उसमें यही होगा कि अगर वो एक सोसाइटी का हिस्सा है तो उसमें फिर ऐसी चीजें निकलेंगे भी जो वो है, and I think that is probably the one thing that hurts India and maybe these tournaments where like where is like the Ganguly side, which or if that whole first decade of the 21st century where Indian cricket has this big chip on its shoulder that it's battling against, and that really propels it forward and forward and forward. And now you see that like it's kind of not there for a lot of these players, and like even like in Test cricket, like you see like going abroad, like until Kohli made it a priority, like and even now, like I don't think is that important for a lot of these guys, etc. So that that mollycoddling in a lot of ways has taken away a little bit of an edge, maybe even. Again, like if you're not being like this is jingoistic as fuck of me to say, but there is a point that Pakistani bowlers do really well in T20s. You don't face them in IPL. You don't face. So I'm not saying that that makes Pakistan a better team or anything, but there is a loss in both cricketing sense and a mental edge in the way the Indian board has been coddling its
Of
team.
course.
And I think that it's coming out in those killer moments. It's coming out in those things. So, that's what cricket does. Like, even if the right has whatever, there's a certain narrative and India is the best and is going to win, but somehow India doesn't win. And, that narrative refuses to reach its final conclusion. So I think that in that sense, the sport or the beauty aspect of it or the thing that we fell in love with remains alive. But that's no consolation, I suppose.
Your point is very fair. In fact, if you look at a lot of Ravi Shastri press conferences, he employs a lot of the points that the Indian political right employs in the way they tackle the media. So,
Hmm, hmm,
and a lot of the, I mean, again, I feel the reason that a lot of the times that this Indian team does not do well during those situations is because they are prisoners to their own arrogance, and
hmm, hmm,
sometimes they are so sure that, like, Champions Trophy Pakistan, yeah, World Cup semi-final New Zealand, like, they were so sure that they'll prevail that they were almost complacent. But going back to obscure Pakistani shit, it's not as obscure as you think. Like, Shoaib Akhtar is the
Fastest
fastest growing,
YouTuber.
exactly, fastest growing YouTube channel. So I will want to get your thoughts on why this sudden proliferation. I have my theory as well, but I'd like to get your point of view.
But can you, for our listeners, can you just list down the names of these channels that we are
So
talking
no, this is the you guys. This is very interesting thing. जब आप लोग ने मुझे डीएम किया तो पहली चीज
Hmm.
मैंने ये देखी कि ये गुफ्तगू सुनी और मेरा जवाब होने वाला था कि
Hmm.
भाई मैंने आज तक इनमें से कोई एक शो नहीं देखा और मैं मर के भी नहीं देखूंगा। मतलब है ना कि मैं अगर इसके बारे में जो न्यूज भी निकलती है मैं उस पर भी कमेंट नहीं करता। मतलब मैं तो जितना इससे फासला रख सकता हूँ मैं रखता हूँ, राइट? बिकॉज I mean, God, man, it is just, and I don't even know where to begin with this. So I'll say like several things because there's
Hmm.
so much that I have to say on this. But like एक बात तो ये है कि यहाँ पे जो आधे लोग जिन्होंने शोज बनाए हुए हैं उनके टीवी पे भी शो है। तो भाई आप अपने टीवी वाला शो करो, ठीक है? तो दूसरा ये है कि ये मतलब सब में वही है कि बस चार लौंडे बैठ गए और बस वो बके जा रहे हैं, चाहे उन्होंने टेस्ट क्रिकेट खेला हो या उन्हें कुछ नहीं खेला हो या उन्हें ये किया हो या वो किया हो। तो कोई ना ही कोई इनोवेशन ना ही कुछ होती है इसमें। और मतलब अब वो है कि ये बहुत सारे एक्स क्रिकेटर्स हैव नथिंग टू डू एंड लाइक दे नीड दैट रेलेवेंस एंड पाकिस्तानी सोसाइटी में एक वैसे भी एक जो है अगेन लाइक वी डोंट हैव द सेम लेवल ऑफ द एंटरटेनमेंट इंडस्ट्री दैट यू गाइस हैव। So, always a need for some kind of somebody to appear in at television advertisements, etc. So this is a great way of making yourself relevant, and of course, like it, the the stupid and insane thing is that Pakistan में अभी भी कोई signature cricket TV show नहीं है. There's thousands of TV shows, and like उन सब में यही हो रहा है, and like so kind of I guess there's just that there's
Same
an
in
in
India, by the way. Matlab, there are no quality TV shows in India, from what I learn.
Yeah, so I mean, there's, yeah, like I think the what I would give maybe one example, and it's not even a cricket show, I guess, but Gaurav's Kalra, I think, who does the
Gaurav
Breakfast
Kapoor.
of Champions.
Gaurav Kapoor,
Kapoor,
huh? Hmm.
Kapoor. Sorry, I always get those two confused. Gaurav Kapoor's Breakfast of Champions, in terms of the level of access and intimacy that he manages to create in that, I felt was something that was very unique. But then India में तभी there have been some attempts with like वो जावेद अख्तर वाला एक show था and of kind of
Mhm.
interviewing things they were generally मतलब I mean cricket में यहाँ भी मतलब there's no shows that are doing archives, tactics, breakdowns. It's just कि tactic में भी मतलब बैठ के ये उल्लू का पट्टा है तो वो कुत्ते का
हाँ हाँ,
बच्चा है
बेसिकली
तो
वही
उसने
होता है.
ये किया है तो वो
या फिर
और
हेडन से कबड्डी खिला रहे हैं लोग,
हाँ
मतलब इंडिया में.
अच्छा तो जहाँ पे मुझे इंडिया की तब भी जो मुझे एक बात जो तब भी बेहतर लगती है कि अच्छा तफरी तो करवा रहे हैं यार कि जिस बंदे को doesn't give a shit about cricket it's still हा 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 ओके हेड नहीं गला होता है यहाँ पे वही के मतलब दो like ugly looking dudes are sitting there and just like And I say this as an ugly looking dude who does occasional cricket shows like that. I don't like watching the shit that I put out either. But okay, that's why I do less of it. Like,
So
uh, yeah,
no, I was saying. So here's the thing: like you name a player, and you'll realize that they have. Fazal Iqbal has a YouTube channel. Danish Kanaria has a YouTube channel. Salman Butt has a YouTube channel. Inzamam now has a YouTube channel. Saklan now has a YouTube channel. Inzamam ke,
Saklin's channel is quite old, by the way.
yeah.
Abdur Razak.
Gilad has
Abdur
been pretty savvy on the internet front.
Abdur Razak had a channel, but Abdur Razak ends up saying things that the channels just could not work out.
Bumrah
Abdul
is a
Uh,
baby
Razak,
bowler.
yeah, Abdul Razak
yeah.
is quality content.
But to before I go to you, Aditya, could you? There's this story that you told me about one of Basit Ali's video. Apple
Okay, so
खाएंगे. Can you?
Basit Ali's videos are the most raw form of entertainment that you will ever find on the internet. If you haven't watched Basit Ali's videos, please watch it. So Basit Ali started off. So he became popular in India during this World Cup through that show. I forgot that name. क्या है? हर
अरे
लम्हा पुरजोश.
हाँ हाँ.
Okay,
ठीक है.
so उस show में he basically played the anti-India card, and that's how he became popular among the Indian right wing. So he got retweeted a lot, his videos and stuff. But suddenly, like post August, this guy suddenly has a YouTube channel like every other
Right.
Pakistani. एंड हिज यूट्यूब चैनल यार, उसकी बेटी बीच में आ जाती है यार. मतलब एवरी अदर वीडियो हिज डॉटर इज लाइक, अरे आप एप्पल खाएंगे, लाइक दैट्स नथिंग टू डू विद क्रिकेट. लाइक आप आज लंच क्या करेंगे, तो बेटी बोल रही है कि मुझे आज एप्पल खाना है, तो वहाँ रखा हुआ है एप्पल, आप ले लें. ये चल रहा है उसके चैनल पे, एंड दिस इज इन द मिडल ऑफ सम हार्डकोर क्रिकेट डिस्कशन. ठीक है, और उसने एडिट आउट भी नहीं किया है ये. एंड दिस इज नॉट जस्ट वन वीडियो, दिस इज लाइक मल्टीपल वीडियोज. So this is
फिर
Basit Ali.
वो मोहसिन वर्सेस मोहसिन चाट.
मोहसिन वर्सेस मोहसिन में ये चलता है कि दे आर डिस्कसिंग कि वो लोग खाएंगे क्या आज. हम चाट मंगा लें, तो छोटा मोहसिन बोलता है कि चाट थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो जाएगा वीडियो में, चाय पी लेते हैं. तो छोटे मोहसिन के छोटे भाई या बड़े भाई जो भी हैं, ही गेट्स चाय लाइक ऑन एयर. ये सब चलता है, एंड दैट इज़ द एक्चुअल एल्योर ऑफ दीज चैनल्स इन दिस रॉनेस, जो आजकल इंडिया में नहीं मिलता है.
So basically क्या हुआ कि around 2014 when Modi, like इसका भी connection इस चीज से है. When Modi won the election, there were these thousands of YouTube channels that popped up in India, like Nation with Namo, India for Modi, जो भी, random. And what the focus of these channels was somehow strangely Pakistan media. So like what Pakistan media is saying about Modi. So a lot of these channels would put out video कि फला न्यूज़ रिपोर्टर ने बोला कि मोदी तो हमें रुलवाएगा and all of that. And suddenly then I think it happened during the 2015 World Cup or right after it when PTV has this Game On Hai, right, the show. And in Game On Hai, Dr. Nauman may have said
Who's our inspiration, by the
हाँ,
way?
he's like our leading light, guiding light. But anyway, so he's must have said something about India, pro India, Indian cricket, and one of these channels cut them and put them on their channel.
Right.
And this video got like thousands and thousands of views. And this is my theory that somehow someone in Pakistan realized, some rando in Pakistan realized कि भाई ये videos डाल के YouTube में views मिलते हैं. तो this guy started recording all Game On episodes and started putting them on YouTube. And then Rashid Bhai and Dr. Nauman realized कि we are doing this, someone else is putting videos and they are getting views, so why don't we do it? And then this brought this whole revolution of Pakistani people adjacent to cricket putting on videos about cricket and talking about cricket. And it has come to this now that जैसे इसने बासित अली या मोहसिन वर्सेस मोहसिन की बात की, there is this channel called Cafe Cricket and basically
Takra.
they talk,
Takra also had a lot of viewers in India.
but they have like 40 an episode is like 45-50 minutes, and for between that 45-50 minutes 5-10 मिनट it's just about हाँ तो इंडिया से दिनेश कह रहे हैं कि हम उनका नाम लें, इंडिया से रमेश भी, रमेश आपको भी हेलो. तो basically and this is funny and this is idiotic and everything, but and we've talked about this before as well, but I do feel that currently strange as it is perhaps the only bridge between the two countries and the people. Because right now, a lot of these Indians are lapping it up, and a lot of these Pakistanis are putting it out.
And there are like certain heartening things that came out of this. So Rashid Latif's mother passed away a year or so back,
Mm.
and uh, social media as it is full of vitriol. But that one day I saw like there is something good at least that survives even in India. So a lot of people who you would label as right wingers otherwise were actually going and passing condolences to Rashid Latif's video and stuff like that. So there is something which survives through these videos. It has some utility.
So I have a few takeaways here. Like,
Hmm.
firstly, like I'm astounded at the level of hipsterness in this group of yours. जो चुतिया पे ये पाकिस्तानी कंटेंट को इतना इस पे चूड़ियां वूड़ियां निकाल रहे हैं तो ये next level है. I feel very honored to be here. I also feel like I'm going to just like destroy your elaborate theories with like just like the Gordian knot explanation of what happened. Um, and so I apologize for that. Like these are really a lot of fun, and a lot of that weirdness is correct. You're not wrong, but like I think there's a little bit of like abhi tak to main, matlab, I've just been mean about them, but like I can just if I can give you a little bit of context of what happened, and the larger kind of trends at play. So the first thing about Dr. Numan is that Dr. Noman is the MD of PTV Sports, and PTV Sports is the channel that gets all the cricket coverage by law on it. It's supposed to be only on the terrestrial channel, but also even on cable they show all the matches, etc. So all of your cricket audience goes there. So I briefly did a show during the 2015 World Cup on PTV Sports, and it was at the level ke matlab the guy who delivered food, or I went to a hospital and the guards, like everyone recognized me. Like the exposure is insane. And तो डॉक्टर साहब जो है वो काफी सारे शोज खुद ही करते थे पीटीवी स्पोर्ट्स पे, और काफी देर देर तक उस पर खुद ही बातें करते थे. तो वो उनका मतलब वो था कि न्यू रूल आया कि द एमडी द बेसिकली कैन नॉट बी ऑन एयर. So I think uske response mein the YouTube channel emerged. I think also that having worked at PTV that basically reruns वगैरह भी random times पे आते थे, और मतलब अगर आपने live नहीं catch की episode तो आपको नहीं मिलती थी because वो upload नहीं होती थी. तो then people just started uploading it themselves. So like पाकिस्तान में अब जाके वो कल्चर खत्म हुआ है, but बहुत अरसे तक ये था कि they were random. There's like something called Zem TV and all these other places that would put up the videos of all the shit that had come on here. Channels खुद कुछ नहीं upload करते थे. और इसकी सबसे बड़ी वजह ये है, and the reason that a lot of this shit is happening out of sync with what you guys have experienced, is that पाकिस्तान में 5 साल के लिए YouTube बैन थी. तो जो
Ah,
एक बहुत ही फॉर्मेटिव टाइम था जहाँ पे इंडिया में जो लाइक ऑल इंडिया बकचोद का अगर आप नाम लेते हैं
yeah.
तो उनका पूरा राइज फॉल सब कुछ पूरा साइकिल भी खत्म हो गया. तो वो उस टाइम में पाकिस्तान में यूट्यूब ही नहीं था. उससे बहुत बड़ा फर्क ये पड़ा कि जब आपने अगर कुछ कंटेंट यूट्यूब पर डालते हैं तो although it happened, it's not a lot of not a lot, and it happens much later, whatever. But theoretically, you earn money from that content, right? In
Yeah.
Pakistan, the premier video platform became Facebook. क्योंकि YouTube बैन था तो Facebook अकेली जगह थी जो सब लोग इस्तेमाल करते थे, उस पर वीडियो भी थी. फेसबुक पे मसला ये है कि आपको खुद पैसे डालने पड़ते हैं ताकि आपकी वीडियो चले. तो वहां पे ये होता है कि पाकिस्तान की जो डिजिटल स्पेस थी और खास तौर पे जो कल्चरल स्पेस थी, और यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड दैट एट द सेम टाइम पाकिस्तान इज आल्सो गोइंग थ्रू अ लॉट ऑफ टेररिस्ट वायलेंस. So it means that there's the culture of concerts has died out, like spaces for stand up, and as you know, like again Pakistan mein publicly sharab banned hai. So
Hmm.
आप जो it's very difficult for like musicians, for comedians, etc., who in India and most places bars wars में आप perform करते हैं, वो spaces ही curate करना बड़ा मुश्किल था. और with all this stuff happening, people were afraid to go out. If they did go out, it was difficult to get security clearance वगैरह. So all of your cultural sphere really suffered from that. And जो इंटरनेट पे जो फायदा होता था कि ओके देयर इज नो गेट कीपर्स, अपने फोन से आप लगा के अपलोड कर दें. तो अगेन यूट्यूब जो उसका परफेक्ट मीडियम था वो बैन था. फेसबुक पे मसला ये था कि आपको अपने पैसे डालने हैं, तभी आपका वो बूस्ट लगाएंगे तो आपकी वीडियो आगे जाएगी, ये वो। तो इवेंचुअली ये होना शुरू हो गया कि अगर आपने मॉडरेटली सक्सेसफुल भी कुछ कर लिया है तो देन यू लिंक अप विद द ब्रांड. And again, in India, like, I mean, we give this example that, when AIB has Swiggy in it, so, they're still allowed to do all their humor, but, Swiggy comes in for a little while or whatever, right? Pakistan, when the brands take a lot of creative control, so then again, it meant that for a lot of these guys, like, they're bound by what the brand wants them to do. And they're bound by, like, this and that and Falana and Dimkana. And then, like, channels may, no matter how big short a cricketer you are, like, channels ki apni hierarchy and power play and all of that is. So I think in that sense, like, for a lot of these guys where, the traditional media has its gatekeepers and has this problem and that problem, and similarly the digital media for a very long time was kind of throttled, both in terms of access and becoming corporatized before it even had a chance to grow organically. तो बहुत अरसे तक पाकिस्तान में जो डिजिटल कल्चर जो और ममालिक में आके मेच्योर भी हो गया, वो आया ही नहीं था. तो अब आपकी जो यूट्यूब है, it came back in 2015. So it's just been 4 years. And I think अभी fifth year होगा, right? 2020 February में. And
Yeah.
so in that time, it took about 2-3 years before the first legit Pakistani YouTubers started emerging, right? There's still there's a bunch of channels and everything, but there's still, like, cricket was one of those major untapped things. And कि उसपे up you're getting to that stage where a lot of people have access to YouTube, etc. So again, for a lot of these cricketers who, okay, all of them want a chance to come on some show or whatever, or wo ye कि अब there's a limited, like, again, the media is also going through a lot of contraction. There's a bubble kind of thing, so there's jobs are being lost, shows are less, etc. तो बहुत सारी स्ट्रक्चरल वजूहत हैं जिसमें आपके लिए बड़ा आसान है कि अच्छा ठीक है, आपने अपना कैमरा फोन का लगाया और उसमें आपकी बेटी भी आ रही है या आप चाय भी पी रहे हैं या जो कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, एंड यू अपलोड इट. एंड वहां पे, मतलब, दिस इज ट्रू फॉर एनी पाकिस्तानी who's ever posted anything online, because Indians and us have such a similar culture. There's so many things that translate. So I'll give the best example is that I've written on cricket for a while, and I've there was one year that I had ईयर एंड पे जब क्रिकेट for अपना वो जो भी डालता है, तो मेरा एक आर्टिकल था which was the most read article of the year. And obviously that's in one way such a great honor कि इतने जबरदस्त writers लिखते हैं that getting to that spot means you are really doing something well. But the reason that article was there, and I know this for a fact because A, it wasn't really my best article, but B, also, when you publish, after a while you pick up it, instinctively pick up on what things work, what doesn't work. उसमें बेसिकली पाकिस्तान श्रीलंका की टेस्ट सीरीज को प्रीव्यू कर रहा था, और मैंने ये कहा था कि the two countries have a lot in common, one of which is that they both don't like India. And or it was, I think, a bit harsher than that, a shared antipathy towards India, a shared hatred for India, something like that. And I don't know, but, like, people in India took fucking offense to it, and it got, like, it just got shared and read and clicked on a lot of times, enough times that it became the most read piece. And so I think the minute you start posting any content that's relatable to Indians, you are very much aware of the fact that क्या कहते हैं, that's a huge audience that you can tap into. And I think Chima and I have had this discussion and a bunch of others as well. And I don't know if we've ever written about this or done it on a podcast, but basically Pakistani pop culture mein you really, really make it when you've made it in India, right? So Nusrat, Atif, Junoon, Nazia
Nadia
Hassan,
Hassan.
Wasim Akram, Imran Khan, like, all of those people, when they become vital signs, like when they become super big, is when they've crossed over in India, right? And so um, I think that is something that any kind of content that you produce, you're always aware of that. अब यहाँ पे ये है कि क्रिकेट एक, अगेन, मजेदार चीज यहीं पे आती ना, क्या क्रिकेट को जो पाकिस्तान में इम्प्लिसिटली बड़े अरसे से था, और इंडिया में बड़ी एक्सप्लिसिटली आजकल चल रहा है कि क्रिकेट को अगर आप नेशनलिस्ट नैरेटिव बनाते हैं, तो वो एक तरफ है, but if you're in the media business, then you're in the business for more eyeballs, and India is your lowest, like easiest, lowest hanging
Low
fruit
hanging
out
fruit.
there, right? So I think there's a compulsion that you have, like, I mean, खुद ही बताओ ना, मतलब कि आपके मतलब वो 10,000 व्यूज हैं और आपने फिर दो बातें इंडिया पे कर दी और 10 लाख व्यूज आ गए. Why the fuck would not try that again every time and milk it for everything that it's worth?
Which is not very different to how you had this whole sudden rise in these goras doing trailer reactions on Indian movies, right? Like this is
Exactly.
But
but the, but the, but the only difference is that if Pakistanis were to do movie trailer reactions, that wouldn't probably get the traction that cricket reactions get in India, because that sense of validation that Indians get from a Gora saying good things about Indian movies is very similar to, say, when a Pakistani says कि आपका fast bowler अच्छा है, so probably that sense of validation is there here.
So that's, I think, the other thing, right? Is that if you look at both forms of media, so a trailer reaction, a trailer by default is going to be less than a minute, right? So it's a very short piece of content, and the trailer reaction is going to be quick, and it's not really going to be very in depth, and it's just going to be like, the novelty factor is there, and so obviously for Pakistanis or Indians, the novelty of anyone not like us is great, and a Gori
Hmm.
Chamri is max, right? So I think कि वो
Hmm.
तो वो है. Cricket, on the other hand, requires insider knowledge, right? Like a Gora saying shit about cricket can be interesting, but you want more, like more, and that was one of the things that I've learned again, like कि in the subcontinent, but the cliche knowledgeable Chennai crowd or whatever the fuck, but like people have extremely strong and extremely detailed and like ridiculous opinions on everything, but especially cricket. तो वहां पे आप वो ये सिर्फ इस बात से खुश नहीं होंगे कि oh wow look this Kohli guy hit something. You really need like that kind of somebody who gets the narrative and kind of is engaging with that and giving you something more. So I think वहां पे the need for it is very different, right? Like you need somebody who has some level of understanding. Obviously वो मिस तो होगा, मगर कि वहां पे आपको ज्यादा मजा आएगा जो एक गोरे की रिएक्शन दे ही नहीं सकती क्रिकेट के बारे में आपको.
To add on to this, so I don't know if you followed this, but this in the last 2 days it has become a big thing with Indian right wing, especially on Twitter. And
दानिश कनेरिया वाली.
exactly, we did not have any plans to talk about it, but have you followed it and do you like क्या बोलना है इस पे? I mean,
So
it
obviously, I think one of the reasons when I got this DM from you guys, so
Mhm.
someone also wanted me to write about it, and like I think Abhi right now to personally, like I've been just keeping a distance from kind of analyzing cricket or whatever. Um, and I think the other problem is that in this atmosphere, you know, you become obviously you're aware of the fact that ये conversation कि कहाँ यूज हो रही है, उसका पर्पस क्या है, उसको किस तरीके से कौन इस्तेमाल कर रहा है, etc etc. I think like especially within a space like this where I know all of us are on the same page and the audience is likely to be that that यहाँ तो वैसे ही मुझे कोई qualms नहीं. I think normally also, like, I don't have any qualms saying this up front, is that Pakistani society is very bigoted, and if you look at that kind of hierarchy of bigotry, then it'll be the Muslim sects and then the non-Muslims who are जिनको आप अहले किताब कहते हैं, who are from the
Yeah,
Abrahamic tradition,
Christians and
essentially
yeah,
Christians,
yeah.
and then Hindus are following outside of that, and even in the state-endorsed narrative, they're cast as the villains, etc. So I mean, I would have the shocking news would have been if there was no incidents of racism and whatever bigotry that Danish Canada faced. That would have been the shocker, because I think मतलब कि एक मेरा नजरिया एक शिया होते हुए एक privileged minority, at least definitely I am very privileged. I have seen bigotry that's kind of shocking, and as I said, like I'm way, way, way higher on that pecking order compared to like somebody right at the bottom of the food chain. So this is absolutely there, and I think that's something that I again, like we've talked about within the Paces Space Yard crew a lot, is that cricket in Pakistan in particular, and in India as well, is like uh, it's one of those rare places where there is mobility for class. And I think especially in Pakistan, like we talk about this, like India में तब भी आपके जो IIT वगैरह में रैंडम एक गांव से एक बच्चा बुन चुन मार के पहुंच जाता है
Hmm.
और MIT चला जाता है or whatever the fuck, right? Like पाकिस्तान में वो वाली कहानी भी नहीं है. So it's really just cricket that takes you rags to riches or whatever. And the cricket key world is a lot more. It's one of those few mainstream moneyed spaces in Pakistan जहाँ elite dominance नहीं है, right? It's actually a lot of guys from smaller towns, a lot of middle class, lower middle class, a lot of working class people. And then when people like someone like me walks in there who's from like the elite schools and speaks English really well and all of that shit, like there's a deference from even the players, because sure, थोड़ी देर के लिए obviously he's a superstar, I'm not, but like once you आपकी थोड़ी बहुत relationship बन जाती है तो वहां पे फिर the class dynamics come into play immediately. Where there's still kind of, I know how to navigate the expensive restaurants in Karachi, for example, or, a party or whatever the fuck, a lot better than some of the, obviously, obviously once you become a big, big star, वगैरह, that's a different matter. But for a lot of guys, even when they're kind of major stars, the class dynamic still plays out, So uh, उस सारी चीजों में Danish Canada comes right at near the bottom. So it would just be ridiculous to imagine he would not face so much structural and personal bigotry on a day-to-day basis. I think, yeah, like I think, uh, वही था कि I would like to be, and I've tried to be unequivocal about it over here. And I think the only thing that gives me pause is obviously the fact that in this moment that's taking place in India right now, this
Exactly.
conversation takes a different view. But I think as a Pakistani, that cannot be my responsibility, right? Like I think there's a responsibility for me to talk about the politics in my
We
country,
agree. Yeah.
and that is the reality of my country. And I think there's this piece by Usman Samiuddin in the Cricket Monthly, and I remember that when a lot of Indians read it, they were just like, "What the fuck is this?" Because Usman is trying to talk about it, but like he's still a journalist and he doesn't want to put something on the record that no one is putting on the record, and it's very clear that neither Canadian nor his team has talked about it. But he's trying to basically trace out what it must be like to be a Hindu in the Pakistan team. And there is I think like when I read it, and maybe because I'm from Karachi and I kind of understand those nuances, like I could really understand that piece. But I think now, like, and it's interesting that Shoaib said it, because yes, obviously Shoaib is Shoaib. No one has better talent at attracting the spotlight than Shoaib Akhtar does. And I mean that as a compliment as much as a detraction. Um, but I think Shoaib also comes from a very, very, very impoverished background. He comes from an outcasted society, and he was a very interesting person in the sense that he had a lot of curiosity about other things as well. So, as much as Shoaib is insane, for lack of a more precise term, ये बात तो मतलब उसने की है क्योंकि again, like he was also somebody who's had that experience of an outsider, and also not being that Muslim type or whatever, um, which again, like I think I've written about a few times, like, and that the social dynamics of that within the Pakistan team. तो उस सारी चीज में I think कि ये तो बिल्कुल भी मतलब I mean it's obviously it's sad, it's condemnable, it's absolutely pathetic, but it's also not in the least bit surprising.
It's interesting though, maybe because I'm looking at it from the point of view of an
The
Indian.
timing of it,
Yeah, exactly. That is something.
which worries us more than
I
anything.
mean, yeah, but again, this has got nothing to do with Pakistan, but more so about what is happening in India right now, and
I mean,
that
I
piece
think
that.
if I
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, like I think I just want to add that कि जहां पे अगर मैं तुम लोग की तरफ देखो ना, तो ये है कि बेशक इस लम्हे पे इस बात की इस गुफ्तगू का छेड़ना is unfortunate. But at the same time, like I think also that the reaction that's happening in India right now, there's a lot of really things that had piled up for a very long time that this was overdue in a lot of ways, right? And at least that's what it feels like sitting from the outside. Like maybe we get a biased view and we get a lot of a lot more coverage of the lynching, etc. But basically, this was something that was building up for a very long time, and so us sense mein, I think yes, obviously something like this would have a short-term derailment, but I think the larger cause has is much bigger than what happened in the Pakistan team 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and just to give you a minor insight, like even in India, Muslims are not homogeneous, right? So
Yeah,
a lot of this, even within the Muslim community, the worst affected are the class, like low class Muslims, if you will. And even if you cut a cleave in Muslims, you'll find that a lot of Shia, or not Shias, if not Shias, at least a lot of like Bohri Muslims are, they support BJP, which
Yeah.
is a very interesting thing in and of itself, which uske bare mein to I
which
guess we
I
have
think
to.
I was reading a thread on it by somebody from Lucknow, and essentially, again, matlab wohi hai कि it's a minority within a minority, and that it's a very interesting thing because South Asian Shiaism um, takes a lot of its cues from Lucknow Shia culture.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it was like the seat of Shiaism in South Asia, and like they were trying to protect that, and so exactly, like I think it's impossible to put it in black and white because there's so many layers within that as well.
Yeah, so moving on to the last part of it, because we've talked some heavy stuff, but the current state. So we often talk about this, and for someone who's seen cricket from much close quarters than we ever have. आदित्य ने वानखेड़े में हर every game देखा, by the way, but apart from that.
एवरी गेम नहीं, मतलब काफी गेम्स देखा, 5-6 टेस्ट मैचेस.
But
Jeez, man.
but what your opinions on the current state of cricket commentary, especially with all the ex-cricketers, almost similar to what is happening in Pakistani YouTube sphere. Ex-cricketers getting into it just because they are ex-cricketer. Like when I listen, very honestly, like Sanju Manju की बात तो कर भी नहीं रहा हूँ मैं. I'm saying when I listen to VVS Lakshman commentate, it my ears bleed.
इवन सनी जी दिस डेज.
अब तो खैर अब anyway, the less
I
said
I
the better.
think तो एक बात तो ये है कि वैसे एक मैं साइड नोट पे करना चाह रहा था
Hmm.
कि आई थिंक आप लोग ने मुझे इतनी इज्जत दी है और तो जो भी सुनने वाले हैं शायद और भी हैं कि जो है देयर दिस एक्सपेक्टेशन आल्सो कि आप क्रिकेट आपको देखनी चाहिए और ऑब्वियसली एक टेस्ट मैच अगर आप सारी बॉल्स देखें और अच्छा मैच हो शुरू से आखिर तक so the more you watch it the more rewarding it is but I think like for me like I've always taken time on and off cricket after a certain age. And I think, especially as I became a professional, like even when I'm paid to watch certain matches, like there'll be times like I'll just switch it off. Because I think that's also the beauty of cricket. Like you can kind of go in and out of it. Like I think थोड़ा सा within fandom ये होता है कि नहीं नहीं पूरा देखो बहन जो ये वो but like I think एक उसमें भी खूबसूरती होती है जो आप ना नहीं देख रहे होते हैं जब वो भी एक वो है but that's besides the point right now. Jo, I forgot the question.
Commentary.
Yeah, commentary. I think so. So yeah, so one of the yes, the reason I brought up this tangent as well is कि थोड़ा सा मैं मुख्तलिफ वजूहात से फासला रखना चाह रहा था क्रिकेट से और उसकी एक और वजह ये भी थी कि because when I work in this field, there's certain things I want to do, and I was getting really, really frustrated by this chance not to do them, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna just not do anything for a while. Because what had happened to me was that after a while, like I was just, cricket and football had just become on my timeline. There was so much toxicity and so much bullshit, and I was like, man, I just need something that gets my mind off it. And quite randomly, I stumbled upon content made by American creators for American sports. And that content was so good that I started watching American sports, the NFL and the NBA,
Mhm.
just to, just enjoy this content. And I got into both sports as well, etc. और एंड उन मतलब अमेरिकन लेवल पे जो स्पोर्ट्स की एज अ टेलीविजन प्रोडक्ट और एज अ व्हाटएवर कंटेंट प्रोडक्शन है, वो इतनी एडवांस्ड है एंड इट्स सो अमेजिंग दैट फिर मतलब ना ये सब चीजें देखना तो वैसे ही बर्दाश्त करना मुश्किल हो जाता है।
बासित अली नहीं
और
देख पाओगे आप।
बासित अली आप तब भी देख पाओगे क्योंकि बासित अली एज यू सेड लाइक अगर ये एप्पल शैपल कर रहा है तो चलो कुछ अनोखा तो कर रहा है, मगर यू नो लाइक आई मीन इफ यू लाइक द थिंग इज obviously we have Sanju Manju and like I mean for on our term we have Rambo who you
Oh
know
yeah.
basically
Who has his own YouTube channel, by the way. Yeah.
who has his own YouTube channel and who also basically is very proud of the fact that he doesn't read up on the games. He doesn't even follow the game while it's happening. Like this is something I've seen with my own eyes, right? So like he's just like wandering about and he comes in, he just starts making up his own shit as he's going there, and it's so frustrating. तो ये तो हमारे मुल्क में मगर आप बेसिकली नासिर हुसैन और माइकल एथरटन को निकाल दें और बिशप और मतलब 3-4 और ऐसे नाम होंगे, it's a global endemic problem, and like I think like you know the Australians are exceptionally bad at it. Where you know again like Indians वगैरह their biggest problems with a lot of our commentators are that they're bland and they're fucking you know boring or whatever. But like these Australian ones are just like ignorant and stupid, and you know they're so loud, and so I think one of the big changes that happened is that पहले भी ex cricketers होते थे और वो जाते थे, they thought this of this job like when I was reading on Richie Benaud very much as journalism, and they trained themselves as journalists and they went about their jobs as journalists, and you see that in somebody like Bishop and somebody like Nasir, that उनको इसलिए इतना वो अच्छा बात करते हैं कि वो पढ़ लिख के आते हैं, मगर अभी तो यू नो सो एक ये बड़ा फर्क है। दूसरा जो बहुत बड़ा फर्क है मैंने अमेरिकन स्पोर्ट्स की इसलिए मिसाल दी थी कि there is a movement away from you know the ex player dominated kind of bullshit analysis of the game, and एकदम से पहले again in the early blog years like एक बड़ा explosion हुआ था, and then kind of the main traditional media you know co-opted it and kind of brought it under control, and now you're in a situation where there's certain kind of traditional media outlets that are producing really good and analytical content, and so their commentary is good as well, and etc. मगर ज्यादातर जो है वो it's just devolved I think as a thing, and I think the way forward is to really move past these very traditionalist ways के X player होना चाहिए और ये होना चाहिए और वैसे
Exactly.
करना
Yeah.
चाहिए वैसे करना चाहिए। तो I think यहाँ पे वही नजर आना शुरू होगा जो I think probably you'll see in uh, something like esports or something you know something that's very of this age, उनकी जो चीजें they'll normalize you know these kinds of things, and then I would imagine other sports would pick it up. It's kind of surprising to see how slow that process has been, but you know like one of the things that I thought was really exciting that I saw is that the NBA is now playing is been trialing these games. तो उसमें ये होता है कि अगर आप लोग बास्केटबॉल देखते हैं थोड़ी बहुत, एंड आई एम नो एक्सपर्ट एट ऑल सो बिल्कुल amateur में देख रहा था, एंड इट्स गुड फॉर समवन लाइक मी, is that they're while the players are on screen they'll have like these animations above their heads, and so they've got several options like एक तो बिल्कुल analytical है तो you know
Yeah.
उसका जो भी shooting percentage आ रही है सबकी, but then there's also stuff like this fun stuff कि if someone is जो video games में जैसी चीजें होती है ना कि if someone is on a streak or hot streak or whatever तो उसके around fire आ रहा है या whatever, and I thought that was like really remarkable because you know it was both and the people that they had calling the game were video game का बंदा था and कोई बंदी थी and ये वो, so they're testing that shit out, but like I think that is really where the future lies because Abhi right now obviously yes we can complain about how terrible these commentators are, but I think structurally it's just something that is really on its way out, you know, or
But I
उसमें मतलब the very fact that Mohsin versus Mohsin exists means that people are you know there's this 27,000 subscribers or something I just saw, तो वो ठीक है they have appetite for these guys as well, and I think that's really where a lot of the future will go. Like I think अमेरिका में अभी एक और मसला जो ये हुआ है कि उनकी जो ये बड़ी मजेदार डिजिटल मीडिया की चीजें थी उनको वेंचर कैपिटलिज्म ने फक कर दिया है, So Sports Illustrated and Deadspin and a bunch of others have kind of fallen apart. But I really think that's where the next 10 years are going, and we'll have a radically different shape. So maybe the commentary might still persist, but I think already one of the things that's happened that you must have noticed in your experience is that social media has also really made commentary a lot less relevant, right? Like अब आप
Mhm.
constantly अपने WhatsApp पे या अपने Twitter पे या अपने whatever जो भी आप social media इस्तेमाल करते हैं, you're interacting with people on the game because that and it's something like, for example, for me, like I would always watch cricket alone. और मेरे अभी भी मैं अकेले ही देखता हूँ, मगर मैं ट्विटर विटर भी इस्तेमाल कर रहा होता हूँ और वहां पे सो लाइक इट्स नॉट लाइक कि ओ पहले मैं लोगों से बात करता था, मैं ट्विटर पे बात करता हूँ. It's actually a separate activity, I think, on its own. And I think that's something that we'll see more and more of. Is that it's fan driven, it's driven by that experience, it's driven by people who are willing. Like, I mean, you guys did so much research for me, right? तो मतलब अगर वही मतलब I think there's a lot of audiences out there that want cricket analysis to be done with people by that much research as well. अब अभी तक क्योंकि हमारे template ये हैं कि we expect to see certain people or whatever, so अभी तक we haven't reached that optimum place, but ideally that's where you need to be going. And I think cricket has really let itself down on that, like where the kind of innovation that you see in the Packer era and even in the 90s, it's been completely the only innovations now is just filling in more and more sponsorship stuff in it. And that isn't innovation and it's going to drive people away to find alternatives.
That's very true. In fact, we've talked about this before, and a lot of it is, I think, the hegemony of BCCI and the overall nature of Indians who are mostly risk averse is why I felt over time that cricket has not adopted um, data as a medium as
Mm-hmm.
many. For example, like the funniest thing, and this would have been my recommendation after our discussion today, 538 and basically ESPN and 538 in US did a piece on Dallas Cowboys, their football team,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how they use the data analytics to win Super Bowl. And the funny thing is that their data analytics guy is an Indian
right.
Muslim. His name is Salam Qureshi, and and we never even think about it in terms of how big cricket is in India, and yet
But
but
there is also an inherent underestimation of the intellect of the audience too in India,
Yes,
uh,
yes. That's a
because
very,
we
very important point.
both with our movies and with the way we broadcast our cricket. I think that is something that strikes you.
So I think that's one of the things that also I feel, that's where the Americans do this so well. कि वो एक ही show में, so if you guys watch the NFL a lot, like
Mhm.
there's the former Cowboy quarterback Tony Romo who does
Mhm.
commentary for CBS. Tony Romo and before that John Madden as well. Like उनकी वो जो बात ये है कि they can do a very detailed breakdown कि इस play में देखें ये safety यहाँ भागा था और linebacker ने ये किया और फलाना ये हुआ ढिमकाना वो हुआ. And yet they can also be like super loud and excitable and everything. And that's something that, like Tony Gregg had that ability, and मतलब cricket had those guys who got that balance. So entertainment, I feel, is very important. It's part and parcel of this thing. Like I have no issue with like trying to make something entertaining, but like that's those two things that you point out. That entertaining doesn't mean appealing to the lowest common denominator. Like that people are able to also be entertained by more complex things, and that at the same point, matlab, again, that people are watching to be entertained, but they're also watching the cricket and they get like the tactics in play and they want somebody to talk about that. और यहाँ पे
Exactly.
दोनों तरीकों में it's and the crazy thing is, man, like again that show that that I was doing on PTV, like we so that show, it was just me, Rehan, and Hassan Seema, right? And so we were none of us had ever played cricket, and at that point hadn't even been writing for that long, and these guys hadn't managed it Islamabad. So we're really just basically kind of fanboys who had this show, and so by default we were looking up stats and but we didn't have के हाँ जी मुझे याद है मैंने संगाकारा के खिलाफ जब खेला था तो ऐसे आउट हुआ था so we had to fucking just do research and all that shit और उस पे मतलब वही होता था कि um, we had like people who were sending in questions and whatever had like really complex questions or in fact I have a better example of this जब PSL में पहली PSL हुई थी so I was doing the digital for all of it. So one of the things that we used to do was we used to do a Facebook Live and on Twitter we would be like a Awam kya hashtag
Mhm.
Awami press conference or something like that.
I'm मतलब
And
Awami
so
League. नहीं, sorry. Go on.
so Pakistan also has a Awami Nationalist Party than KP, but
Pakistan though also had for the first 5 years you guys has had Pakistan National Congress as well. I was amazed. But anyway,
wow,
वो
I'm
छोड़
gonna
दो.
look that up once we get done with this. But हाँ तो क्या कहते हैं कि उस पे हम लोग फैन से पूछते थे कि we would post कि okay, Misbah and Dwayne Smith are coming to do the press conference. What would you like to ask them? Use this hashtag. And dude, what would happen was कि वो मीडिया वाले सब बोलते थे अच्छा आज आपने 5 विकेट ली कैसा देख रहे हैं आप आज आप मैच हार गए कैसा महसूस कर रहे हैं and the cricketers would just give like these generic responses and then जब हमारी बारी आती थी they'd be like okay now PCB social media has some questions and we would see like players like stiffen up and like start concentrating because the fans would ask like acha from the 16th to 20th over you were targeting the leg side was this strategy that you'd come up beforehand or did you like they were really intelligent questions about the game that people who had carefully observed it were asking and so that was another like you kept coming across examples where the public has like and this is not like some guy from Harvard asking this question like some guy from a village in Mardan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is
Wow.
calling in to ask this right so that kind of shit was man in fact it was insane I briefly was called in to do a game for Copa America and so because of the time difference it was 3 in the morning and this guy calls from a village in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa this was actually the village in Mardan Khyber Pakhtunkhwa he didn't call he called to say he was like अच्छा ये बताइए जो कोलंबिया फुल बैक्स इस्तेमाल कर रहा है उसके
Wow.
बारे में आप क्या सोचते हैं
Wow.
Wow.
ब्रो man I'm just a fill-in dude are you fucking kidding me like yes so there's and cricket में तो मतलब yeah dude like anyone you fucking speak to obviously once you get past those bullshit conspiracies and gossip and scandal people have really really they don't need to be educated or whatever or literate or whatever the hell to have really intelligent opinions on cricket so that's something that's such an untapped market and that's why I mean personally I get very frustrated and I've tried to keep my distance or whatever because it's just like यार ये क्या बकवास निकल रही है मतलब I mean like a lot of the guys working at Cricket for Friends and I said it to them as well but like even at Cricket for example like who the fuck wants to see Ajit Agarkar or Cyrus Brocha man like so and I keep saying like they've got I would much rather see a Sid Monga show or an Andrew Fidel show right like
Yeah.
it's insane. Like they've got all this talent, and again, like you see that in America where they had this good or bad, but they made their journalists into these brands and they put all these shows around it. And ये वो तो, of course, matlab, this is not to condone American sports journalism, which is its own level of insane. But I think there's you see that quality then come out like in the kind of shows that they make, the documentaries that they make, like जो ESPN की 30 for 30 होती हैं या जो
Hmm.
NFL खुद
Yeah.
अपनी फिल्म्स निकालते हैं again like एक सोच के मतलब the NFL is a fucking conservative right wing organization, right? So, but and it has more control than the BCCI does. But like one of the things that I noticed as well is that they allow their footage of every era to be on YouTube and Twitter वगैरह ये वो मतलब आपको उन्हें टैग शैग करना होता है बट वो सब कुछ डाल देते हैं तो उससे ये होता है कि again people are making interesting content there's like there's better debates happening the podcast or whatever you're doing you can actually go back to those moments and talk about them so again like that's a proactive way of thinking about what do we do with our digital rights versus for the IPL you have to go on the IPL fucking website and load
Yeah.
its janky video player to watch highlights right and it's like I mean this ठीक है आप अपना चलो अपना सेटअप कर रहे हो जो कुछ भी कर रहे हो तो but really, think about what is the best way to spread out, like, make best use, make fucking money even. Like, I'm not even making like an idealistic, artistic statement over here. Like, ये तो आप basic और पैसा बनेगा, brother. मतलब रुक क्यों गए? So, in that sense, like, I think they really did. The conservatism of cricket broadcasting and cricket media is an anomaly, because I think the market for something different is overdue, and that's why everything from this podcast to all the shows that we were talking about earlier exists, because the audiences are, they're looking for something different, and that's why, more than the talking heads, the kind of funny things they're doing on the side, or the rawness of it, is interesting, because they don't want to watch एक टीवी सेट पे बैठ के चार एक्स क्रिकेटर्स वही बातें कर रहे हैं। एटलीस्ट यहाँ ये बाहर बैठे हुए हैं और कुछ यहाँ पे की बातें भी कर रहे हैं, तो चलो वो अच्छा हो जाता है।
No, a lot of cricket commentary, network cricket commentary is basically ex-cricketers' retirement scheme where they just come and they retire. Uh,
Yeah.
just a quick point on data analytics. I think IPL in a way has helped a little because IPL teams have embraced data in a big way cricket के context में. And like for example, Jayant Yadav, who and I guess someone else was talking about this earlier as well. I mean, not in this podcast, but somewhere else. कि Jayant Yadav को Mumbai Indians took him, and they did not play him through the tournament, and they directly put him in the semi-final against Sunrisers because they knew that Sunrisers, especially Warner, had a thing against ball coming into him, and they wanted to use it, and it paid off. So, and it was completely based off of the data analytics company that they work with. So I think eventually you cannot stop it, but yeah, cricket is very conservative when it comes to that as compared to something like American
That
football.
is directly to do with with India being conservative at
वो
the
एक
moment.
दूसरा
No, I
पॉडकास्ट
think I
वगैरह
think ये कंजर्वेटिज्म अगर आप देखें, वो इंडिया भी बेशक होगा, मगर देखें, स्पोर्ट्स ज्यादातर एक बड़ी मेल और ट्रेडिशनल मेल स्पेस होती है, which
Hmm.
is the most conservative group that exists in any society. तो आई थिंक है वहां पे एक, और खास तौर पे अगर स्पोर्ट्स में चलो और भी बैकग्राउंड्स के मर्द आ रहे हैं, मगर जो उसकी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन होती है सुपर सुपर कंजर्वेटिव। आई थिंक दैट्स
yeah
द मैनेजमेंट, द कोचिंग, व्हाटएवर, इज सुपर कंजर्वेटिव। I don't know if they can say anything publicly, but like, my friends who work as managers, you get to hear a lot of stories of their kind of struggles and everything to, convince players and managers, which has changed largely because they've been very successful as well. And I think, yeah, they've talked about like IPL in particular being, the most heavily kind of embracing analytics. I think also Abhi ke, there's a lot of more work that has to be done in cricket analytics. Like, I think even
of
basic
course
level pe, the when it happens in America, they're actually building on a baseball statistical analysis that has existed for like, I think, 150 years or something. So, they were really building on something really huge. And even like in Kisari sports ki jo data ki granularity is insane, before analytics even enters the picture. Whereas in cricket वगैरह वो पीछे, मगर आप cricket की जहाँ तक मिसाल देते हैं, also something that I've been noticing with a lot of interest is, like football's
hmm
use of video technology has been such an unmitigated disaster, and
yeah
it's a lot of it has to do with like football's conservatism of how to reconcile, how it's played out versus television replays or whatever. Whereas a lot of sports have found ways to resolve this issue, and cricket in particular, I think, given how complex cricket is, has done a much better job, and football's found every which way to fuck it up. So I think यहाँ पे भी एक वो है कि क्योंकि वो स्पोर्ट्स की सोच ही इतनी पीछे रह जाती है, so again, like with analytics वगैरह, those things need to happen, because, and I think the other thing is, the the biggest thing that I learned going from, being a fan and doing all this shit and then going to the other side, is that the especially in teams like in Pakistan, but I think it's true in every place. So much of it is your edge in the mental space, right? So you
yeah
can have जो आपने जो इस player की भी मिसाल दी कि जयंत क्या नाम था उसका?
Jayant Yadav,
जयंत यादव.
off spinner.
या सो जयंत यादव अगर मतलब एनालिटिक्स तो आपको सब कुछ बता रहे हैं, बट अगर उसको पूरा 2 महीने वो बैठा हुआ है और फिर सेमीफाइनल में वार्नर के खिलाफ आता है और उसकी वहां फट जाती है, तो फिर एनालिटिक्स की वहां बात खत्म हो
Exactly.
जाती है. और एंड एंड दैट आल्सो आई फील इज नॉट समथिंग दैट ओ पर्सनालिटी एंड ये and वो, like I think that's also a really really big part of your preparation and your kind of work that you put in as an athlete. And it kind of surprised me how much it makes a difference, because like जो चीजें जो खास तौर पे जो डेटा के लिए सरप्राइजिंग होती हैं, like so I wasn't there myself, but like everyone who was around the Pakistan team before the Champions Trophy final was like, it's kind of insane how confident these guys are they're going to win. And I think no one on the planet thought
Of course.
Pakistan was going to win that match, right? So I think वहाँ पे एक आपको, and ठीक है, sure, the data will बाद में we can fit the narrative, So this is not me undermining the data in any sense. But what I'm trying to say is that we still have, like, cricket में बहुत सारी चीजें darkness में अभी भी हो रही हैं और बहुत सारी sports में भी ये हो रही हैं, and analytics is really the step towards seeing, like I think Usman wrote this great piece the other day where it was about okay, we're learning new ways to look at cricket because of
What my niece taught
analytics.
me, wala.
या
Uh,
तो आई थिंक वो एक बड़ी अच्छी बात है कि बेशक आप क्रिकेट को नए तरीके से देख रहे हैं. एंड सबसे फनी बात यही है कि जो सबसे बड़े हिपस्टर और नर्ड्स हैं क्रिकेट के, उनको बाय डिफॉल्ट T20 से नफरत होती है और टेस्ट पसंद होता है. But all the interesting work and data is coming out of T20s, because that's where you have non-cricket administrator types getting involved in the
exactly.
game, and they
Exactly.
have different incentives and they have different business practices. So they're kind of like, all right, let's try this out. And that's it's I think KKR had like, and Hyderabad. There's a bunch of Indian teams. यही cricket में मैंने पढ़ा था, but who had taken the lead with it, I think, and now they're all trying to do it in different ways. And this is still a field which is so nascent that there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that can happen. So yeah, like I think it's over. It's again like the commentary thing. It's one of those overdue things that you definitely can see happening and going further and further.
Exactly. So my last question would have been how you see cricket moving forward, but I guess you've already answered that, and we've already crossed 1 hour 45 minutes in total. I'm sure people will love to listen to this one because you are there. Usually it's just the two of us and our another guest
Shooting shit basically.
shooting shit, as we say. But I think this is where we end. And just before we end, is there any recent books, and not cricket related, but any, and this is something that we do with all our guests, any recent books, articles, Netflix show that you've really liked and you'd recommend our listeners to watch, listen, read?
So I think I read as much as any time in my life, and yet I just never read books anymore, which is
Articles will do
थोड़ी
as well.
मुझे, yeah, there's थोड़ी शर्म आती है, but like I'm like over it. So it's okay. And I think a lot of the articles that I've been reading have been American based, etc. But I think in terms of shows, there's a lot of good things that I've been watching. Succession was extremely good.
Yep.
BoJack Horseman, season finale is coming out in a few months. I think that is one of the greatest pieces of television that's come out, which is on Netflix. There was one more thing that I wanted to mention that I'm forgetting. In fact, today I also went to see a movie, Knives Out, which was also quite nice. Paisa
Actually.
Vasool type film.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, like so. Sorry, yeah, I think I'm now like thinking of 1,000 things and not decide, like not being able to pick anything. But
we would we
these
would
choices
love
I'm happy
to.
with.
So this is an open thing. You just ping us and we'll have you. Like, I was thinking that we should do one on politics, just like identity and finding politics, like we do in our own podcast, because I think that would be another fascinating thing to talk to you about.
Yeah, sure, man. I think it's always fun to do these things.
With that said, Aditya, anything else that you'd want to add?
I have a recommendation.
Yeah, sure,
It's
go on.
about Mo- Mohammad Wasim, Rashid Latif, and Dr. Saab have done a video as to, and they explain why they entered YouTube. Must listen.
Why the what?
Why their foray into YouTube space and why that was like. So they've done a video yesterday. So that
Uh,
is my
I
recommendation
I
for
will
them.
leave you connoisseurs to enjoy that fine content. And yeah, yeah.
I have already mentioned that ESPN did a whole, like, it's a short documentary about Dallas Cowboys and how they've embraced data analytics and how that helped them succeed. Uh,
Dallas Cowboys का मसला है कि उनका चूतिया कोच जो है ना वो
hmm.
जेसन गैरेट वरना yeah like but
So
definitely please send me the link to that. I'll
who's
definitely check it
who's
out.
I'll message you. I'll DM you on Twitter. Who's your team? Which team do you follow in American football?
So my basis is following black quarterbacks. So I think I
Hmm.
most enjoy the Kansas City Chiefs because my पिछले season शुरू किया था और Mahomes was going crazy. But then like I'm also a big Lamar Jackson fan, so मैं Ravens को भी follow कर रहा हूँ. And the Seahawks because of Russell Wilson. So basically, black quarterback like is my agenda.
हमारा मैं अनफॉर्चुनेटली 49ers, बिकॉज 49ers के शहर में रहने की वजह से 49ers को ही फॉलो करना पड़ता
Nice,
है.
nice. But I mean, you're having an amazing year, so
I mean, after a long, like 49ers is all. I don't have a cricket. I think like New Zealand or West Indies. That is what they've been for the longest time, and now they are doing really well. So yeah, that's good. With that, we've already crossed a lot of time. We've already been. This is officially our longest episode. So with that, thank you everybody. Thank you, Amar. Thank you, Aditya. Take care.
But